Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Today, we have the great Richard White here with us, the co-founder and CEO of Fathom. And we are very happy and excited to be here. Um, for today's session, we just want to have a casual talk on about how to create real, powerful, growing PLG startups. As you know, product-led growth is one of the greatest initiatives that and adventures that happen in the startup world, and it's now one of many of the greatest startups in the world in the past 3 decades have created using PLG. So we want to talk about three things. First, what to do to become successful using PLG, what not to do, which I think is more important, and the third and the most important one, what is the roadmap? Because at the first, when you start a startup, you shouldn't do everything at once. You should create a roadmap how to achieve that. And when you are creating your roadmap on the PLG, instead of the sales driven method, which is more normal and more understandable for everyone, everything is different. So here we want to talk about these three. First thing first, I wanted to introduce Richard and also ask him to tell us a little bit about himself and also about the great Fathom, uh, my favorite note taker. I would say that I'm not ashamed of that because it's so great, and I will talk about great things that I've seen you have done in this great product. So, hello, Richard. How are you doing?
Hi. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so quick background on me. I started off my career as a programmer, studied computer science. I early on actually switched over to product design. I actually ended up working with a company in the first batch of Y Combinator called
Nice.
Kiko with the guys that went on to found Twitch. We kind of started in the same room as Reddit. So that was a great entree into kind of the world of Silicon Valley startups. Did another company called User Voice, and then started Fathom about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. Yeah, and our premise was simple, right? We kind of thought, it was 2020, so LLMs really hadn't yet kind of come to the forefront, but we felt pretty confident that AI was going to get really good really soon. And we kind of thought one of the best use cases of this is to take notes for you on meetings. No one loves meetings. And part of the reason we don't love meetings is because we hate trying to talk to people and take notes at the same time. So we said, what if we could build a great AI note taker that takes notes for you in your Zoom meetings, your Google Meet meetings, and does that all for free? And who wouldn't like that? And so it turns
Exactly.
out that's right. Everyone seems to hate taking notes. Everyone loves getting something for free. And so we've done very well. We're the number one AI note taker on the HubSpot marketplace, on G2, on the Zoom marketplace. And so it's just been a really fun ride.
Awesome. Very nice. You have done a couple of things that are very interesting, and I want to really dive into that as well. The first one is that you have taken advantage of an alternative pricing strategy as well. So not only that you are doing PLG, your pricing strategy is very different from your competitors and what was the norm in the market and what was also to similar companies like Gong and everyone else. So you went the route of totally free, and tell me about that. What was the idea behind that, and how is paying off right now after a couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, so there were people that were doing kind of some sort of like video recording transcription and some light AI stuff when we got started. You mentioned one with Gong. They generally had two traits. They were generally vertical specific, and they were generally very expensive. And this actually was because when we got started, transcription cost itself was really high.
Yeah,
And we kind of had this thesis that, well, we think transcription cost is going to go to zero very quickly. I think it's a commodity. So we're going to, kind of play to where the puck is going, as Gretzky says, and say, like, we're going to give this away for free. We also had a thesis that, I think, one of the things that's important to me when you start a company is like have a thesis about how you're going to get distribution and customer acquisition. And our belief was like, if you use Fathom, you're going to bring it into your meetings. You're going to have to explain to other people. So it's like naturally viral, naturally spread, literally word of mouth, right? Because like, oh, what's this thing in the meeting? Oh, it's my Fathom note taker. And one of the things I saw, because User Voice, my previous company, also had kind of this natural virality to it, is it's really tough to be viral if you're vertical specific and if you charge a lot of money. Because if you're vertical specific, the likelihood that, if you, let's say you sell to sales, the likelihood that a salesperson is talking to another salesperson on a meeting is like really low, right? So it's important that you're like horizontally positioned, like we are, you know, a note taker for everyone. And then if, you know, if the thing costs money, I'm less likely to recommend it. But if it's free, I'm very likely to recommend it because I'm giving you a gift, right? And there's no risk to me because I'm not, you know, recommending you spend money on this. I'm actually telling you about a secret that I know that there's this great thing for free. And so I really am a big fan, and I'm a big believer in free products to start. I think there's a kind of a standard startup wisdom, which is like charge money early so that you know if you're solving a real problem. And I think that makes sense in some cases. But for use cases like Fathoms, just the fact that you use it day in, day out tells me that we're creating value. I don't need to charge money to realize we're creating value. And I can find other ways to monetize later on. So I'm a big fan of deferred monetization for that reason.
Awesome. Yes, that's because the most popular KPI is usually the money, the MRR, the ARR thing. But most of the time, people forget about the usage and the amount of usage each customers have to do in order for a product to become viral. And you
Right.
mentioned the network effect, which you take advantage of that greatly because basically every Zoom call, every Google Meet call is your free advertisement.
Yep.
That's the advertisement. You don't need billboard or you don't need Google Ads. You have your advertisement place. The other thing was that the timing was right as well, because after COVID, a rise of remote working, so everything was just fit perfectly on that front. And did that help with getting into the idea as well? Was it like timing first and think of solution, or was it the other way around?
You know, it was actually right before COVID where I was just on a bunch of Zoom meetings myself, actually doing some like product research for a different product. And, you know, I think I was doing 20 Zoom meetings a day. And that's when I really stumbled on, was like, you know, this note taking thing, trying to take notes and talk to people is terrible. It's really stressful and done. And I think, you know, we got kind of lucky with timing, right? Because we had this thesis that AI was going to get really good and transcription costs is going to go to zero. And, you know, I think it's easy to be directionally correct on that. And the timing just happened to work out. And we had this also theory, like, if you wait till those two things are true, it'll be too late to start this business, right? It'll be very obvious to everyone to do this. So you actually need to like start running at the window before the window opens and hope that by the time you're about to jump through the window, it's opened, right? I think we were very fortunate in that regard. Like, if transcription costs, you know, was slower to go down even by like a year, we probably would be having this conversation. If AI took another 2 years to come to, you know, come to market, like large language models, we probably aren't having this conversation. So I think it's a little mix of like having good hypotheses around where the world is going, starting ahead of that, and then honestly getting a little lucky that like those hypotheses turn out in the time range you need them to turn out.
Exactly, you're making the right bets of what can happen. And from now on, moving forward, for example, transcription pricing will go down dramatically, as we are seeing that this is happening right now. And a lot of other features that we can now add to the note takers, because I want you to, but I would imagine that the future of the Fathom is more than a note taker, and it will be like an assistant. Like, I would love to learn more about what the roadmap do you plan for the next years.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we built the whole product before LLMs came out. We said, well, first we're just going to build out a really robust recording and transcription product that works well in every meeting, which is actually pretty hard to do. I think most of our competitors were building a product that worked 80% of the time, right? And we said, no, we have to build a product that works 100% of the time. And kind of this area, at some point, LLMs will show up, and no one really wants a transcript. Like, no one wants to read a transcript of the meeting you're in. I can't think of a more painful, boring thing to do. But the LLMs will need the transcript to do all the fun stuff, right? And so starting about a year ago is when the LLMs hit this point where they can actually take better notes than almost any human on an individual meeting. And now we're getting to the point where and find all the action items and stuff in that meeting. So like we can do all that today. We do it really well. Now what we're on the cusp of is LLMs can look across multiple meetings, right? All the meetings you had for a certain deal, or all the meetings you had with a certain company, or maybe it's every sales meeting you had in the last 6 months. Maybe it's every one-on-one you had in the last year, and start pulling out insights from that. It couldn't do this really even a year ago, but now we're at the point where like you can do this and you can start, it can be kind of a second brain where it not just tells you, here's what happened in a specific meeting, but here's trends we're seeing, here's improvements and that you can use, you can take back to your business. So it becomes, we're getting kind of to like the Jarvis level of things for your business, if you will.
Yes. So your HR can have a brain on every employee engagement systems. Great.
Yep.
Your
Yep.
sales and marketing, same thing. So even each department can have different agendas and different ideas of what they want to analyze over the time and see the trends. That's very
And
nice.
I think we'll actually make meetings something people like. I mean, people hate meetings, right? You ask anyone, people like, "Oh, I hate meetings." But when you unpack why they hate meetings, we hate all the busy work we have to do afterwards, all the documenting, note taking, putting things in my CRM, in my project management thing, and we hate being in meetings that like we didn't need to be in, right? Like, oh, one time Rich needed to be in this meeting, so now he's stuck in this recurring meeting, right? And so with AI, we're already close to solving the first part, right? Where AI, you just speak it into existence and will fill in the right things in your CRM and your project tracker, et cetera. And I think the next step is we're at the place where you have much smaller meetings. And it's like, oh, Tim should have heard this last part of this conversation. Great. Tim's already actually notified about it, right? And so you come to this world where meetings are, not this ephemeral data, like they can be kind of time shifted and made asynchronous. And I think that leads to this world where like, great, we can just focus on having like really interesting conversations with the other humans on our team.
Awesome. And on that note, one of the things that people really forget is that having a meeting is a tool, it's not the goal.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
want to achieve something inside the meeting or any conversation and communication that we have. And it's not about having the meeting per se. I want to achieve something in that. So, and a lot of time that when a meeting got canceled, people are happy. So that's a indication that you shouldn't have that meeting at all.
Right. Yeah. Yep. 100%.
And that's a good analogy on that front. So overall goal, I would say that to improve communication, to improve the knowledge, acknowledgement that you want out of the communication that we have with the customers, we have with our employees, we have inside the team, so we can learn more out of the time that we spend inside the meeting. That's a very good idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you're building a product like this, people think about like, oh, what's the value? Oh, we take notes for you. But I really push our teams like, our value isn't actually taking notes. Our value is that we're making meetings less stressful for the people on them. And that's not what you put on the website, but that's what people will feel. And we should try to figure out how to maximize that feeling. I think that's one thing people don't, I think the cardinal sin of PLG products is not making a product that people absolutely love and can't live without. There's a lot of folks that are like, oh, it's kind of like, it's marginally interesting. It helps me a little bit, but like, you actually want to make something that spreads word of mouth and really, which is, I still think the best channel for a PLG product. The bar is actually really high. The bar is, this is something that changes how I work or how I live. And I think the whole push in the last 10 years for MVPs made people think that like, I just need to make something that just barely works and get it to market. And I think that is 100% the wrong thing to do, especially in this day and age where there's so many products coming out every day. I'm a big fan of like launch late, right? Iterate quietly with a small group of people until you have something that people just really love, and then launch when you've got something that can really, blow people away.
Totally agree with you. MVP doesn't work in 2025 or even 2020 for that matter. The new term that I really like myself is MLP, most lovable product, because
I like that.
minimum lovable. Yeah, because you need that love from the customer, from initial customers. Of course, we cannot create everything in day one, in a stage one of our business. That's true in any company, and any company has limited resources. That's true as well. But if we don't capture that we are useful for an organization, for our ICP, for ideal customer persona, we will lose. We are creating a mediocre tool in the sea of great tools. For example, if you and I stay here, we can talk about great PLG tools that we know until tomorrow, because we have a lot of great tools in the market in different areas, in different spaces. So if I want to make a dent really inside our industry, I have to create something great.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, I guess the biggest failure mode I see amongst founders is like, it's their baby, and so they think their baby's actually an ugly baby, but like, it's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen, right? Like we don't hold our own products to the same high standard that we'd hold for someone else's product, and I think that's what you have to do, is be objective, like, oh, my baby's still ugly, we need to work on it, sort of thing. I mean, for Fathom, we basically, I told the team, we don't care about anything. We don't care about onboarding. We don't care about monetization. We don't care about All we care about in the early days is building a product that people would use day in, day out. And we went through, I probably personally went to my network and tried to sign about 800 people for Fathom until I got to a cohort of like 50 people that use Fathom day in, day out.
Nice.
And it was still very, like the onboarding was still a mess. We weren't charging money for it. Like there was a lot of things that were kind of wonky about it, but we nailed the like recurring use, right? And then I felt confident, great, now we can go build a better onboarding system. Now we can go build monetization, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's the bar for me. It's like high engagement rates are the most important thing in the early days.
Exactly. Same with us as well. When we first started, we didn't even create a payment system to upgrade,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we created a form and said, okay, if you want to upgrade, fill out this form and we will get in touch with you, because, okay, I want something else matter more right now than something that might happen or whatever. And that's a very true thing. For example, I want to give you why I like Fathom a lot as well.
Great.
Is that one of the great things that I see in Fathom as a PLG is that I can use it with minimum effort. I should not do anything. So basically, for people who are not familiar, is that it just, when you connect it and everything that inside the website, that's it. That's all the thing that you can. Every time you have a meeting, it just appears. Every time that you want to end the meeting, it just send you a list. That's it. I don't have to do anything. It just automatically record, automatically ends, automatically share, everything that I need to do. So that's one of the important part, the intuitiveness. I didn't need to learn Fathom that much, so it was there, and that's one of the three pillars of PLG startups. So first thing we covered, start with why. Why our system is important. What is the benefit that is capturing? That's the pillar number one. Without that, we cannot build anything else. So first we have to figure out. The second part is intuitiveness. If people have to learn how to use the software, they are less likely to basically recommend it to their friends. They are less likely to get onboarded. They are less likely to use it, because, again, why should I learn something new when there are a sea of products out there that are good? I'm great with this. Why should I learn something new? And the third one is time to success, which I want to talk about with you right now, that we have to reduce time to success for our customers. What they want to achieve by using us should be reduced. Anything that we can do. So you have captured the intuitiveness, and let's talk about that. And you have reduced the time to success compared to competitors and everyone else in the market, because your market also, there are a lot of different players, but you are doing that, I think, well, very well. What was your ideology on how to tackle these two issues, intuitiveness and time to success?
Yeah, I mean, I think of intuitiveness also as like just kind of like leverage. Like, how do we give you the most value for the least amount of effort on your part, right? There's a lot of products where they're like, oh, like, this can improve your productivity 10%, but you need to jump through these 10 hoops to get to it. It's like, that's like a lot of work, right? Like, so I generally deprioritize features that require manual intervention by a user and instead focus on where are the opportunities for software to feel magical, where it just does something for you without you lifting a finger. And then, so that's like one dimension, which is kind of like that ROI of like effort versus impact. And then you're right. The other part is how quickly can I get you to experiencing that ROI? And, for us, we focus a lot on like, how do we, the aha moment for Fathom happens after your first meeting, when you get that summary and the notes and the action items and, oh my gosh, all this stuff just got delivered to me. As you said, I didn't lift a finger. I just did my meeting per normal. And I just did less work than I did, honestly, previously. I'm not typing any notes. And so we focused a lot on, and this is partially why making it free is helpful, because, if you start charging money, I've got to jump through that hoop. Do I want to pay money for this? And da-da. So we were pretty ruthless about cutting everything out of the setup process that didn't 100% need to be there. And great, this step is like maybe optional. We'll put it after the first meeting, right? After you finish your first meeting, now I'll tell you should try to connect your CRM, for example, right? Mm-hmm. I don't need you to connect your CRM before you get to the aha moment. Once you get the aha moment, now you'll be excited to connect your CRM if you're in sales and stuff like that. So we did a lot of work to figure out how do we get you to feel comfortable bringing Fathom into the meeting you have coming up 15 minutes after you sign up. One of the things we actually did is we learned that everyone wanted to people sign up for Fathom and they don't want to immediately take it in their meeting. They wanted to do a test call and figure out how it worked. And so we actually made an infrastructure where you click a button and we would send like a bot with a recording to a meeting where you could play test Fathom, right? And we found that greatly improved, basically our activation rate, because people didn't have to go find a friend to talk to and figure out this worked, right? They kind of had a fake meeting to do it in. So I think you're 100% right. Those are the two dimensions I think a lot about, is like time to value and like basically value over effort.
And you giving them the taste right out of the bat. So you don't even wait 5 minutes. You can test it right here, see how it feels. It's like a test run that a lot of other businesses can do. On that level, but you have done extra over this as well. You have removed a lot of things. That's one of the things that the founders should pay attention, that a lot of times when you want to improve onboarding, when you want to improve intuitiveness, you don't need to add stuff. You have to remove stuff. It's everyone can create a complex system. That's Salesforce, right? Yeah.
Right.
SAP, yeah. We know all of this. So, but removing is the real art. How did you decide what to remove? What was not essential in product wise?
We, especially like I said, so we started off by just, we didn't even worry about onboarding. We just made kind of the simple experience in the meeting. And part of the hack here too is this is a product that I can use. I think this is my thing, is I always work on startups where it's a problem I have myself, right? So it's kind of easy to kind of like, how do I make this simpler for myself? But then when it came to thinking about like time to value and onboarding, I think we had like a 3 to 4 month push post launch where we were getting enough signups every day, so we had enough data to see what those onboarding rates were. And it was basically myself and one of our engineers every day. We just sat down and said, great, where do we see the biggest drop off in the sign up process? Let's cut this, and every day we made the sign up process about 10% better, right? That was kind of our goal. Maybe not 10, maybe like 4% better, right? Every day. And I just think it was just persistence, right? It was just kind of, it wasn't like we weren't big cuts, right? We're just basically nibbling around the edges until we got to a point where like, oh, we got our onboarding rate from like 30% to 80%. We're like, okay, like we think we've cut most of the fat here, and what's left is only the essential things.
Yeah, exactly. Those cutoff moments, that the traps that people are struggling with, it's the most important part that not a lot of founders pay attention to it. They just because they have built this, again, as you said, it's their baby. So why should I change my baby? But the real world is that if there is something that is blocking your customers from achieving what they need, you have to figure it out. There are a lot of great analytics platform, different systems that you can incorporate inside your product to analyze everything. The best thing that I've done, I've seen many great founders do, for example, WordPress, Slack, that they even themselves that okay, I will see but with my own eyes the first users that we onboard to see where they are struggling. They don't see that button. It's not their fault that they're not seeing that. It's my fault. I have to fix something.
Yeah, we were fortunate at launch because we launched into this new Zoom marketplace. We had high enough volume to rely on analytics to do this. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you. Most startups don't, right? Most times you launch, it's like, you don't have enough to have statistical significance, right? So you can't wait to A/B test these things. So you're right. You should honestly, you should be running through deleting your account and signing up like every day yourself. And then you're right, using some sort of screen recording thing, session recording to like watch every day where people get stuck, right?
Yeah.
We also had a thing where we would, after you got to your first call with Fathom, we would send you an email and we'd offer you a $25 gift card to talk to us for 5 minutes about your experience. Mm-hmm. And that's also where we learned a lot about what was confusing in the onboarding process, right? Like even people that made it through the onboarding process would highlight like, oh, I didn't quite understand the step, but I like got past it anyways. And that gave me confidence because I know for every person that got past it, there was probably 2 people that didn't get past it, had the same concern, right? So I think that's another tool that founders don't use enough of. Like we throw so much money in terms of gift cards at users for things. That's actually most of our marketing budget is like gift cards, like write a review or tell us your feedback or whatnot, right? And most people would love to give you feedback. Most companies don't actually care about feedback. So telling them you'll pay them for their feedback makes them realize like, oh, this company actually really cares, and I will take the time to tell you how it can be better.
Exactly. And it's peanuts over what we have you can save
Right.
otherwise. And big corporation, when they want to say, okay, we care, or when they do focus groups or something like that, and they spend millions,
Yeah.
but the feedback is within the customer. So if we don't pay attention to the feedback that customers that can give us for free or with a small fee, like a gift card, why don't you pay attention to this, that you can fix it right away? And again, we are startups. If something is broken, if something is a mistake, we have to fix it like today. Even next week is not an option. We have to be agile. Otherwise, the big corporations have more resources than us, and they can crush us. The only weapon that we have is that we are agile. We can learn much faster from our customers, and we can adapt much faster from the customers.
I think this is another kind of like classic startup failure mode. I call feedback like the vegetables of startups, because like everyone says they're eating their vegetables. No one likes eating their vegetables. And let's be clear, on some like emotional level, none of us actually like getting feedback about our product, because you'll almost rarely hear like, it's amazing. You'll hear for a long time, this part sucks, this part sucks.
Don't change anything.
Yeah. And so like you will, like you'll either have friends that lie to you, right? Because they don't tell you your baby's ugly, or you'll have users that'll tell you your baby's ugly. And it's really honestly emotionally taxing to sit in that space, because you will take personal ownership of your product. So I think that's one of the big things to overcome, is just like, you have to be willing to have almost the emotional fortitude to be just, someone tells you your thing is terrible all day and you just smile like, great, let's go make it better, sort of thing.
Exactly. Because again, it's not something that it's for me personally, it's something that they can fix. So I have a big admiration for founders that even when their startup is big, they do customer support in a part of their job, because they want to be connected to the customer as much as they can. They cannot do it like 24/7, but they can do somehow. And I can learn from it. I can learn what's the most important thing that is wrong right now, because everything it can improve. So that's the why we have a startups. We can improve things. So we have to pay attention to that.
It's tough too, because you have what I call often as founders the curse of knowledge, right? Like
Yeah.
you know so much about your product that you can't have beginner eyes when you look at it, sort of thing. Anytime someone basically joins our team, we ask them to go sign up for Fathom and then give us their feedback on what parts were confusing too, right? And I think that's another good way to like get really trusted feedback from folks who are incentivized to make the thing better, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because we are right in the middle of the box. We cannot see the big picture, even when we are trying to. The fresh mindset can help a lot. So we talked about how everything that we have to do to create a great product. What the most important part is, what will be the first steps? So when we start, first of all, should all of startups do PLG, or should we choose? So what's your take on that?
I mean, I think if there's an opportunity for you to build a PLG product versus a sales-led product, the PLG product will almost always win in the market. But I think there's also, there's certain markets and use cases where usually when the TAM is small, or there's 1,000 companies in the world that need this. Well, it doesn't make sense to PLG. Like you should just go sell directly to them, right? So like there's certain enterprise problems and stuff that need to be solved where I think sales-led makes more sense. I think for the vast majority of things, again, if you can make a case for the market's big enough to support PLG, you should do it. I just think consumer buyers tend to always prefer PLG over SLG.
Exactly. So I'm with you on that. So when some founders talk to me about I would want to do a PLG startup, my first question is how. So it's because PLG is a name, same as sales-led growth. So if you ask me about SLG, I would say how. So the how is more important. The strategy that we have for PLG. How do you want to make this product to grow on PLG? You have to have, as you mentioned, the network effect. You have to have something to build on. So what's your take? So basically, you have to first answer this question of how do I want to make that happen? Does that make sense or not? So it's not about that this is cool, this is a trend. This is that something we have to figure out for ourselves.
Yeah, again, I think for us, we had to have a thesis about there was a big market. we would have like PLG would make sense and it would allow us to basically build a growth engine, right? That got us to capture that market. And I kind of always think like revenue is actually one of the easiest parts. I feel like if you can get usage, like a lot of usage from a lot of people, there's very few examples where people couldn't turn that into revenue, right? And for us, we always had this thesis that we'll monetize at the team level, right? Individuals, we don't want to charge the sales rep or the founder or the whatnot for Fathom. Once they want to roll it out to their entire team and they want like a centralized repository where they can search across all their meetings, great. That's a natural place to monetize. It's like the terminus of our like value delivery. But in the beginning, we don't need to worry about that. We're just going to focus on making a killer individual user experience. So I think that's part of it. You need to know where you're going, but I don't think you need to go there on day one, right? You need to know, okay, if this thing works, we're going here. But there's kind of a do not pass go. If I can't build a product people use day in, day out, it doesn't matter. I don't need to worry about monetization or I need to worry about virality if I can't get folks to love the product at its core. So I think the key thing you have to figure out in the beginning is what is my aha moment that I'm getting people to? Like, what is the singular thing that I'm getting to? I think a lot of people try to throw, there's 8 different value props here. Each one of them is kind of mediocre, but maybe they if we add them all together, it turns into something that's exciting. It doesn't, right? Like It's kind of like an argument. If you have to win an argument with 8 counter arguments, it's not a strong counter argument, right? You need one killer feature, one killer experience, and like be relentless about figuring out what that is and getting people to that, as we said, quickly, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and for example, the revenue, the money, they are the end goal. You have to have a path to get there, as you mentioned, for example, team, calculating ROI, but you don't have to obsess about it from the beginning because you don't have it yet. So we have to find the strategy how to reach that. But the other important thing, yes, is that how can I get people to fall in love with what I built? So how can it be useful for the businesses?
Yep.
On that front, what are the biggest mistakes that you have seen founders do when they are creating a PLG?
I mean, I think the big one is tackling too many things at once, right? It's like I'm building out the core functionality. I'm also building out the onboarding process. I'm also trying to monetize all at the same time. It's like I'm doing each one. Each one of those is a really hard thing to do, and to think you can do 3 at once is, I think, pretty ambitious. So I think that's a big one. So again, I'm a big fan of do these things in order, right? Like again, if you can't get good free user retention or just user retention, then don't worry about onboarding. If you can't get good onboarding, don't worry about virality. If you can't get virality, don't worry about, or whatever your version of virality, if you can't get acquisition, don't worry about monetization, right? Because, monetization means only interesting when you've got those 3 prereqs in place. That means you'll have, low churn, and high growth. Outside of that, it's like not super interesting.
I would say the same because, again, curse of knowledge. You know that you're supposed to do all of these, but you want to do too much at the same time, and you end up doing everything half-ass, and you will be like every other product that is out there. So you don't want to be like every product else out there. You want to be the best option out there, and I see this a lot. When the founder is technical, for example, like you and me, I see that a lot of features. So do this and that, and we have to add the different modules. When the founder is like on the marketing side or on the sales side, we see that they want to do a lot of channels all at once. We want to do this and that. It doesn't work. We don't have enough resources to do all of this at once.
I think it's because people look, especially your first time founder, you'll look at products you love and you'll be like, wow, they're doing all the marketing channels. They have all these features, functionality. But if you go back to the beginning of those companies, they had one marketing channel and they had one value prop, right? Exactly. And that's all you need. Yeah. And I think the key thing is figuring out, again, similar to value props. Like you want one value prop, you want one marketing channel. You don't want to do SEO and SEM and virality, and like pick one. And like if you can't, one of those is not going to get you to your first 10,000 users, then go back to the drawing board and figure out like, oh, maybe I'm in the wrong market, or maybe I shouldn't be doing PLG, right?
Exactly. And if I'm focusing on this one, I can do that better than anyone else. Again, yes, my bigger competitors are doing everything, but they are doing everything at the same times. So if I focus on one thing, I can beat them at it. So I can, but I cannot beat them at everything. So that's very important. And that look back on the beginning journey of each startup, look at the beginning journey of each product, see how small it was, see how focused it was. And me myself, I haven't never seen a product that wasn't focused to become successful later on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like Legos. You build a small and you make it bigger. It's not something that doesn't. Everything in our world works exactly the same way. You start small, you become bigger. It's not that okay. I have to do everything all at once.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
Couldn't
very
agree more.
yeah. What else? What else is the mistakes that founders take on the PLG?
Again, I think sometimes people are like they don't pick a large enough market for it, frankly, right? It's like this thing might be better done as an SLG product. I think the other big one, like I said, is like again, not being objective about how lovable, as you pointed out, your product is. I think that one's honestly the hardest one for most folks because it just again takes a lot of emotional fortitude to look at your baby and say it's ugly and listen to feedback that says ugly and then just put your head down and make it prettier sort of thing. So I think that one combined with doing too many things at once is most of what I see from first time founders.
Exactly. And at the first stages, same as you said, that at the first stages, we should pay attention to the top of the funnel more than anything else, because we have to focus on, okay, I know exactly who is my product for. I have my ICP in place. So I know who to look after. I shouldn't work a lot on, for example, creating a branding system or working on SEO on different sections uh, because what founders are afraid of, and the most mistakes that we make is we are afraid of something, so we make a mistake at the reaction to that. Afraid of is that okay, the other people are not seeing my product, so I have to diversify. I have to do everything to see. I have to create the brand. I have to create the SEO different kind. But they forget that at the first stages, your ICP is super clear. You know exactly who has the, as you mentioned, best ROI for you. So message.
I think a lot of people will sometimes do like they'll optimize for a lot of people using your product a little instead of a little people using your product a lot. Exactly. And I think, it's like, oh, we've got 1,000 people, we got 1,000 MAU. It's amazing. It's like, how often in your product? Oh, like once every 2 months. Oh, I'd much rather have 20 people that use my product every day. Right. And I think that also usage pattern is super important. I think there's a lot of problems, a lot of people build a product and like, how often does your ICP user have this problem? Oh, they like run into this like once a quarter. It's tough to get people to like change their behavior or something. They don't experience that frequently. Right. And so I think for me, the holy grail is daily usage, right? Like at least weekly. Like monthly is hard, but I think if you got something where someone's in there every week at a minimum, it's good. And if they're in there every day, like that's fantastic, right? There's very few products we're actually in every day, and those products are huge businesses usually.
Exactly, they're like the golden goose. And to be honest, I would I have made this mistake more than anyone else in the planet. So they are trying to please everyone, trying to make everyone happy, but your happiness will be divided. So it's very small thing. So it's like stop trying to make everyone happy. You're not tequila. So we have to do one thing and make someone, a specific focus group, happy, and we are golden, and we can basket on that.
Yep.
Very true on that front. The other question that most founders have is how to market at the first stages. So when we have created the product and hopefully everything is good, people are loving it, it's a good product. We are small, but it's a good product. It solves a specific problem. We talk about intuitiveness, time to success, start with why, everything. But now we are a well-oiled machine. How we can make it big? So what's the next stage? What's the roadmap to make us market our good product?
I mean, I think about this in terms of like, again, having a plan for, okay, how do we get the first 100 users? How do we get the next 1,000 users? How do we get the next 10,000 users? And kind of on, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes people jump directly to like, oh, I need to get 10,000 users, right? Yeah. No. First 100 users is going to be you doing something very unscalable and very manual. And that's great. The next 1,000 maybe is like slightly like a little more automated, but still actually might be you grinding it out, right? And just LinkedIn messaging people or something like that, right? And I don't know what the answer is for folks, but I think the cardinal sin here is trying to think too big and be like, oh, I need a channel that's going to get me 100,000 people in the first 3 months. No, you don't, and you won't find it. And so, I think for us, it was like, first that really the first 100 people was me doing personal outreach. The next 10,000 people was actually, we got lucky and like we got involved in the Zoom marketplace, right? When it was launching. It's a pretty unique opportunity. Most companies don't get that. It's not really reproducible advice. And then the next 100,000 was those first 10,000 users telling their friends and stuff like that, right? And so
Exactly.
we had, in some ways, 3 different channels for those first kind of 3 segments, right? And I think that's pretty common.
But that's a very good idea. Like even using numbers, that gives us an idea. For example, first 100 users, because your marketing effort, the priorities you will basically choose are totally different to the first 1,000, and it gives you like a relaxation as well. So I shouldn't think about, okay, I have to create a unicorn right now. So I want only 100 customers. That's it. That's the only thing that matters right now, and I will get rid of all of the distraction. That's a very good idea, actually. Yeah.
Yep. And I think you have to just be alive to the opportunities. For example, I actually, one of our opportunities like Product Hunt, right? You get the first 100 users yourself, go to something like Product Hunt to get the next 1,000. Product Hunt will get you 10,000, but could certainly get you 1,000, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, and after that, I need to go do maybe now I'm buying ads or something like that. But you're right. If you try to boil the ocean by being like, from day one, I need some sort of huge unicorn style fire hose of signups, it's going to be tough to find. And and it's kind of demoralizing, or you're setting the bar too high. Like, make it easy on yourself.
And it's a very easy way to get burned out as well, because why the ocean is not boiling? Do you see? And why it's not working? I wonder why. That's very true. And based on that, we can change our priorities. For example, how do you basically choose the priorities that you want to focus on every step? And if you can think of, for example, share anything that happened in the early days, what happened in the first couple of years.
Well, this is where I think you want to it's helpful you put your own guardrails. Like you want to constrain the problem, right? Like again, so for example, we knew monetization was going to be on team features, but we knew that came later. And so in the early days, anytime someone gives feedback of like, oh, I'd like to use it with my colleagues, I was like, great feedback. We're not going to action that at all because we already know we don't care about team functionality right now. We only care about time to value for individual experience, right? Like I said, we only care about retention. So if someone came up with feedback that was like, oh, it's hard to get the setup, great feedback, don't care about it right now. Oh, we think we could make we could count some viral loops, great, don't care about that right now. So I actually think that's always the job of the CEO. Actually, this is the number one thing I think about my team is like, how do I have strong hypotheses about where we should invest time, and like also anti-hypotheses, like we don't want to invest time in these things. And I kind of constrain the problem, and then that allows everyone on my team to be able to make like smart, quick, local decisions without having to come back to me. And like, we don't have to debate every single thing we work on. Everyone knows, oh, it fits inside this bounding box. These are the types of problems we want to solve right now. Doesn't fit inside this bounding box, great, we can just dismiss it out of hand, sort of thing. And so I think in the beginning, you're basically creating this framework for yourself, but over time, you're creating this framework for your team so they know what's in bounds and what's out of bounds.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a very good idea. And it's easily missed as well. Yeah, it's easily missed. So based on that, we can basically have a small plan to grow and each step create a roadmap. How do you create your roadmaps? How do you think about connecting the big picture with a smaller strategy that I have to do this week or this quarter? Because that's where most founders struggle. That, okay, I know the big picture because we are visionary. We like to be creative visionaries, this kind of thing. But what about connecting it to create a roadmap and connecting steps? How do you normally do that with your team?
I'm pretty different in how I do road mapping. I think the most folks, we literally have just like one Notion page that's just a single list of things. We don't do Kanban boards, and we just kind of burn down this list, right, and shift things around. I mean, I think for me, again, we kind of thematically know what we're going for. Like, right now we're focused on this metric, right in the beginning. Right? We just care about free user retention, and we have probably in the beginning, we have more big bets, right? We've got more of like, okay, we've got some big things we think will actually lead to better retention. And it's not science, it's art sort of thing, right? You're like making big guesses and you're trying stuff and see what works. And then as we kind of scaled up, we've got more of our ratio of what I call big rocks to little rocks changes, right? Now there's like a lot of very predictable little improvements we can make. And there we just try to have some certain guidelines like, okay, we want to spend about a third of our time on like little rocks and little improvements that aren't going to show up in any metric, but just will constantly make the product a little more delightful. We want to have a ratio of like delight features to, satisficing features. So I think there's like interesting balancing acts. Like, you don't want a product that's just utilitarian. You need like a little bit of delight. You don't want things that's just big features. You need polish. And so I think actually the thing with building roadmaps is building balance between these things, right? And I see people just do one or the other. Like, all we do is A/B test and do lots of little changes, or all we do is these big features, but we never go back and make them easy to use and sort of thing. So that balance between delight and utilitarian, and that balance between like big bets and like little bets and little fixes, I think. And again, this balance will shift, but you should be intentional about what our balance about those things is going to be, right?
Yeah. And that's easy thing to miss as well, because okay, I'm so consumed with everything inside our backlog that we forget to give a personality to what we are doing. Because at the end of the day, again, people should really enjoy using our system. So they should enjoy when they were working with it. So again, same as that, we don't like a big software that we use, that like big CRMs that no one is like using them. They have to use them.
Right.
But we as a startup, we have to create something that people really like to use them. They are delighted when they are logging in,
Yeah, I think people generally underinvest in delight features, and you won't get to lovable without delight features.
No.
And they tend to underinvest in the small improvements, right? And so you tend to find folks with these big features that are really utilitarian. It's like, okay, great, but like it's basically like having a meal that's all vegetables and no dessert, right?
Exactly.
You need a balance, right? So yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense.
And a lot of one of the main challenges that PLG startups and every other software as a service startups have nowadays is that a lot of things have changed in the past couple of years because of the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot more things will change in the next couple of years. And it will redefine what we call as a software as a service industry that we have today. And a lot of that will change maybe you and I's big picture that we had for the past few years. So what do you think will happen to the SaaS industry in the next couple of years?
I mean, it's changed. I think it's the AI, introduction of AI is biggest shift in how we do product development in the 20 years I've been doing software. Because for the last 15 years, most SaaS products were what we call CRUD, right? It was like create, like read, update, delete, right? There was really no technical limits to what we could do. We just sat down. It's like, okay, what's the next most best feature I can add? Now we have a much more R&D approach. We actually have a whole team where there's a number of use cases that we have that like we think AI can solve, and we're constantly testing new models and seeing like, does it do a good job of solving this? And I describe it as like, we call it like our Jenga model, right? So if you're playing Jenga, right, if you push on a block and get resistance, we try a different block. And so for us, the block is a use case in a model. So if we're trying to say like, oh, we want to have an AI basically sit across all your meetings and give you insights. Well, 6 months ago, we pushed on that block and found still really hard, and we can probably make it work, but it'll be a lot of effort. And honestly, probably by the time we get something working, we'll find that a new model comes out and we would have got it done in a week instead of 6 months if we just waited, right? So now it's much more an R&D approach where our roadmap is driven by what's possible with the latest AI models, as opposed to what we want to do next to a certain degree, right? All we want to do next is find the highest leverage thing that we can do to create more delight for our users, or high leverage, basically value for our users. AI does something magical. It's really that open-ended. Yeah. And then we've got 10 to 15 different use cases and things we're thinking about, and we're just constantly playing this Jenga game. And when some box starts sliding out easily, like, great, that's now the next thing on the roadmap. It's such it's R&D, right? It's an R&D driven way of doing product development, which is very different than every product development process I've seen in the last 15 years.
Exactly. And in this climate, uh, I call this surfing of what's happening and how can we react to it.
Yeah.
And that will help us not to invest on things that will not make sense in the next couple of years. Because what I'm afraid of is that many software as a service that we see today will be irrelevant in the like 5 years or 10 years, because
Yeah.
we don't need them anymore. To
Yeah.
be honest, we don't need them anymore. So, and if now that I'm working, for example, when I'm working on Formaloo, I want to, if I create something that is great for today, it might be irrelevant in 5 years. So I have invested all of this time, all of this effort, all of these monies to be relevant in the next in the next decade. So the question is, how can we create a business that will be pioneer for the next generation of SaaS that is yet to come? We are on the earliest stages. Everyone is
Yeah.
thinking about that this is something big, but we are all like baby steps of AI yet. We haven't seen nothing. So how can we create a business? How can we identify these opportunities to create the
Yeah.
next generation of SaaS?
I mean, it's kind of similar to what we did, which is like you were starting something today. You wouldn't want to build a business around something that's possible today with AI. You'd want to build around something that's not quite possible yet, right? You might take my Jenga model. If I was starting off, I'd actually focus on the blocks that are hard to push out. Be like, okay, this is what we're going to work on, but we're going to find a way around this, or wait, or like hit the window right when it opens, because okay, what's really hard to do with AI now, but probably is easy to do in 2 years. Like that's probably how I'd be thinking about it,
Yeah.
right? Because if you can do it today, everyone's going to do it. I'm going to do it, right? Like, etc. But you want to be like, oh, again, going to where the puck's going to be, sort of thing. It's a crazy time, man. Like it's, it used to be this kind of like these changes in enabling technology happen once every 10 years, right? Oh, now we've got mobile. Oh, now we've got social. Like that was like these, big epoch changes, but they only came maybe twice a decade. And now the LMs are improving at a point like every year you've unlocked a whole new set of functionality that you can build. So yeah, you're kind of in this place where you could start a business today and you could be absolutely killing it. And 2 years from now, you're going to go to zero, or you're going to have to disrupt yourself, right? Like you saw this with like the Jasper AIs and the first wave of AI tools that was like writing things for you. And they raised a ton of money, and they had their day in the sun for about a year and a half, maybe
Yeah.
2 years, right? Versus historically, you build something like that, you've got at least a 5 to 10 year window of clear sailing before for some enabling tech basically undermines your value prop. Now you've got 18 months, maybe,
Those
right?
days
So
are gone.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So we have to always look what's next inside the AI industry as well. So what will happen, and bet on that, and we have to find out. Uh, so if we are on the automation phase of AI, everything that we are doing is being automated with the AI, and we are seeing this happen more and more, especially today is that we are talking, for example, with the rise of AI agents that can really automate everything for us. Again, baby steps today will not be baby steps in 3 years. So it will be like something robust that we can. So we have to understand, for example, what can we automate that we are not thinking of right now? What can we predict that will happen in the future that we can resolve to, again, create that ROI for our customers?
I also think you have to think about like also like where your TAM is moving in the next couple of years. For example, a lot of salespeople use Fathom and tools like Fathom. How many salespeople are there going to be in 5 years
Yeah,
as AI continues to progress and get better? Well, interesting question, right? Like you may not want to build a seat-based model if that's like what you think is going to happen, sort of thing. So I think
exactly. Yeah,
there's really big shifts here in like working demographics and stuff like that, that if you can figure out if you can think far enough ahead, there's probably some huge opportunities as well as huge risks for incumbents, right?
exactly. That's why it's very important to think about the shrinking markets versus growing markets in general. You don't want to bet on shrinking markets. It's not a good idea for me to create in 2025 an online fax system. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something that is growing. Same as you say. So my customers can change as well. So we will see a new basically positions, a new change of team. Organizational chart inside. What will be the sales and marketing, for example, in the next 5 years? Will they be separate like today? Will they be changing? What will happen? And figuring this out, of course, is really hard. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. And finding the right bets is very hard. But I want to ask you that normally in these situations, uh, what sources will have biggest impact in your decision making? How do you make sense of this chaos that is the market?
I mean, I think the word you used was surfing, which I think very much as well, right? Where it's like, we've got some folks on our team, like our AI team, like I said, focuses a lot on figuring out where are things going with AI over the next 18 months, sort of thing, and that feeds back into kind of our planning process pretty heavily. In fact, that probably is the biggest input, right? Is folks on our team that are really close to the metal on AI, really pay attention to the white papers and the news and figuring out like, where is this going to be in the future? That drives, I think, most of our thinking today.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Very good. So I think we can talk about this for a few more hours, but I want to stick to our timing. So it was very great to see you today, and we had a very interesting talk. I hope we can continue that other times as well. We just touched the PLG, but there are a lot more to cover. But I'm hoping that it's beneficial for the next generation of founders, to founders that are having their PLG startups today, and we see great products happening. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you, and see you soon.